I'm sad to say that I am DNFing The Bone Ships by RJ Barker. I am sad to say that because I was looking forward to it and had really high expectations. And my expectations weren't so much high because I had looked into it a whole bunch, but I had gone into one of the fantasy Facebook groups I'm part of and asked for suggestions for nautical fantasy for a summer read. This one was mentioned lots of times. It came very highly recommended. Then I walked into our local Goodwill and there it was. So it was like a sign. And then I started it, and at the very beginning I was like, ooh, this is great. I love this. Because of those feelings I had when I first started it of, I love this is cool, this is weird and interesting, I'm going to say right now that this is a soft DNF, meaning that I am not going to continue it right now. I may not continue it the rest of this summer, but I'm not going to get rid of it yet. I might find myself coming back to still wanting to know what happens, or maybe like I feel like going back into this world at some point. So I'll hang on to it. I may still finish it. I'm going to leave my bookmark in on page 150, which is the 16th chapter. So my main reason to DNF and to just put it down in favor of other books right now is that I didn't care. I was not given enough reason to care about the characters, what they're doing, why they are doing it, why it matters to them. What I loved about this book at first, in those first 50 pages or so that I read before my last video and I said, I'm enjoying this so far, was that it was really interesting. The world is very different. The prose is enjoyable to read. The fantasy world is different from any other fantasy world I have read. The characters live in an archipelago, which I hope I'm pronouncing right. They are a nation of seafarers, but they don't have a bunch of trees to make ships with. They don't have much metal. The ships are mostly made out of old sea dragon bones. And the way that everything is described makes you feel like you have entered a faraway, exotic, interesting place. But then the more I read, and the farther in I got, the more it felt like that was the focus of the book. And maybe that's why it came so highly recommended, is because the world feels so unique and interesting, and people reading this series want to be in a new and unique and interesting world. But for me, okay, we've been introduced to this weird and interesting world, now what? And even the main character whose viewpoint we're seeing from, Joron, his character setup is interesting. He is the shipwife, aka captain, of a black ship. People who are condemned to death, whatever crime they have committed earns the death sentence, aren't always just killed immediately. Sometimes they get sent to a black ship. And these are usually not the best ships. There have not been sea dragons to take bones from in a very long time, so the ships are disintegrating, they're becoming decrepit. The black ships are the ones that are getting worse than the ones that the actual military uses. Not just military, like normal sailors. And so if they die in the line of duty, that's just what they deserved anyway. And the only way to get off a black ship is by such intense daring. They have to do something so amazing to have earned their way off. So it kind of pushes them to do more dangerous things than they might have otherwise, because they're going to die anyway. That's their sentence. And then if they do something especially dangerous and make it, maybe they can earn their way off. And then Joron has no sailing experience. He was not a sailor, and he should have never been elevated to shipwife in the first place. And so he's just kind of lazy and lets things go. And then he is suffering from a lot of PTSD and anxiety. He has a lot of fears. He's afraid to stand up for himself. He's afraid to give his crew orders in case they don't listen to him, and then he has to try to enforce that. And then at the very beginning, this new person comes walking up and says, "Give me your hat," and then wins his position from him before he even got to do anything with it. So Joron becomes first mate, which has its own name in this story, deck keeper, maybe? Deck keeper. And he is very surely convinced that he doesn't even deserve that job, but because it's being offered, he'll take it. And I thought that was a very compelling beginning. He should never have become captain of a ship, Now he is one, but it gets taken from him before he even gets to step up and try to become worthy of it. And so I liked the world setup. I liked the character setup. But then it's just so much. In the next 100 pages or so, I made it to page 150. Feels like it's just following them and what they are doing. Like now Joran and the shipwife go and do this, and then they go and do this, and then they go and do this. And then finally we find out the interesting thing that's happening, which is now the first dragon in centuries has been spotted in far-off waters. That idea gets introduced, and what are they going to do about it? And to me, none of it felt like it was made to really matter. Like they're doing all these things, but why does it matter to the characters that we're following? Why is it important? What's the struggle? I don't know. I don't want to just read a book of things that are happening. I want the things that are happening to matter to somebody. Either to the characters in the book or to me or whatever. It really felt like it suffered from a term that's used more in the writing community than the reading community, but I think applies here, which is world builder's disease. In the writing community, it's when you're building your own world and you spend so long crafting the world that you never actually get to writing the story that takes place in the world. This feels, in a similar way, like the author was focused more on the unique and weird and interesting world and how that was going to set his books apart from other books out there, which it does, to be fair, but then forgot to go deep enough into the story. And I have discovered that I am definitely much more of a character-driven reader, which I know not everybody is. So for someone who is not such a character-driven reader, who really likes the unique and interesting world and wants to dive into that kind of place, that's probably the person that all the recommendations for this book were for. And like I said, it's going to be a soft DNF. I feel like I still want to give it a chance, but it's not pulling me in and making me want to come back to it. Which, one of the other books I've been reading all month has done. That's Jurassic Park. That one I've been purposely reading slower and taking breaks from because I'm doing it as a read-along. And every time I take a break from it to read something else, I want to get back to it. I want to see what happens next. And that's the feeling that I wanted from this. So I would say, cool nautical story in a unique and interesting fantasy land, but it is definitely more about the world than about the characters. At least that is true in the first 150 pages. I'm also going to be really honest here because it's the type of person I am. I'm disappointed about not liking it, partly because the spine looks so cool. I wanted the whole set of them on my shelf. I love this aesthetic that's going on the book spine, but I'm not going to let that tempt me to buy the next two until I have finished this and fully decided whether I want to keep continuing or not. So for those of you to whom this still sounded interesting, I will put a link to it in the description. I'll also link my Instagram and my Patreon. Thank you, patrons. I appreciate you guys a lot. And happy reading. Bye.